Have you ever washed your dishes and accidentally washed away your luck and money without even knowing it? If this kind of wisdom speaks to you, thank you for being here. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, or even drop a comment below. It helps YouTube know you're part of this quiet, mindful shift. Let's clean differently. Because Feng Shui isn't always about furniture or color. Sometimes it's in the smallest habits. The things you do half asleep. The way your hands move through water. The way your energy moves when nobody's watching. There's a strange truth hidden inside many homes across America, kitchens that sparkle but somehow feel off. Families that work hard, live right, and yet their cash keeps disappearing, their energy feels blocked, their wealth corner never activates. And often, it starts at the sink. I once visited a house in Sacramento. The dishes were stacked perfectly, counters lemon clean. But the owner? A single mom working 2 jobs, constantly exhausted. Money came in, then vanished. Same with her luck, same with her energy. And I noticed something. She always washed her dishes facing a wall. Back turned to the kitchen. No view, no connection. That moment, something clicked. Feng Shui doesn't just respond to placement. It listens to intention, to motion, to how we show up for our space even when it's just you and a sponge. So today, we're diving into 5 everyday dishwashing habits that quietly block your energy, luck, and money flow. And trust me, if you've ever felt like your kitchen is clean, but your life still feels stuck, this video is for you. Amanda never thought a sink could whisper. But after years of freelancing from a tiny apartment in Seattle, she began to notice something strange. Every time she left her dishes overnight, just a bowl here, a mug there, something would go wrong. A payment got delayed. A pitch got ignored. A client ghosted. It started on a Wednesday, rain tapping the window. A half-eaten pasta bowl slid into the sink. "I'll clean it in the morning," she said, already halfway to her laptop again. Midnight stretched long. Her Spotify lo-fi mix played the same song twice. The spoon, covered in red sauce, slipped from the bowl and clanked the side of the sink like a tiny alarm. She paused, then shrugged. But when she opened her inbox the next morning, her biggest retainer client had decided to take another direction. Amanda stared at the message. And then, she looked at the bowl still sitting in the sink. Cold, heavy, unmoved. Feng Shui sees the kitchen as the heart of wealth. The stove holds fire, which ignites energy. The fridge holds earth, which grounds blessings. And the sink? The sink is water. Water is flow. When dirty dishes sit overnight, especially without intention, they trap stagnant energy. They lock the chi in place. Instead of clearing the past, they collect it. In Amanda's case, it wasn't just food. It was frustration. Each dish held the energy of, "I don't have time." Each spoon soaked in, "I'm too tired." Feng Shui doesn't punish, it reflects. And her space was mirroring back the exact message she was putting out. Nothing's finished, everything's paused. Amanda grew up poor. Her dad was a truck driver, always away. Her mom worked evenings at the diner, often coming home just in time to collapse. So Amanda learned early, work hard, say yes, keep going. And she did. She built a freelance life from scratch. Clients, branding gigs, Etsy shop, late-night video edits. But that same hustle came with a cost. The fear of slipping back into scarcity, into unpredictability, made her overextend, overcommit, overwork. People who leave dishes in the sink don't always do it from laziness. They do it because rest feels unsafe. Because they think stopping is dangerous. Because somewhere deep down, a small part of them believes they have to do everything at once, or nothing will stay. Leaving dishes in the sink overnight is like not replying to your landlord when rent is due. It doesn't erase the problem, it amplifies it. It's like keeping unread emails in your inbox with the hope that if you avoid them long enough, they'll vanish. They don't. Or worse, it's like closing a book halfway through a sentence and expecting to remember what it meant the next day. But energy doesn't bookmark you. It loops. And when you leave food, scraps, residue sitting in your sink, you're telling your home that digestion of food, of thoughts, of experiences is incomplete. Amanda remembered something her hairdresser once told her while rinsing out dye. She said she could always tell which clients had chaotic homes just by how tangled their hair got. Amanda laughed then, but it stuck. So she asked the hairdresser what she meant. She said, energy lingers, whether it's in a pillow, a plate, or your scalp. That evening, Amanda looked at her sink. It wasn't about pasta sauce anymore. It was about all the small choices that collect. The micro decisions that either invite flow or block it. That night, Amanda didn't write affirmations. She didn't cleanse her space with sage. She didn't light a candle. She simply washed the dishes. Slowly. Deliberately. Like it mattered. She wiped the counter clean. Let the faucet run a few extra seconds. Dried her hands with care. And whispered not to anyone, but maybe to her home. I'm ready to flow again. Now Amanda has a rule. If it takes less than 3 minutes, it gets done now. Even if it's just rinsing 1 spoon. She made a playlist for dishwashing. She calls it her Wealth Flow Beats. Every time she hits play, her cat blinks at her like, "Oh no, it's that time again." But Amanda just grins, sways to the music, and scrubs with quiet joy. Because she knows clean dishes don't just sparkle. They sing to money. Come in, there's space now. Frank never cared much about Feng Shui. He cared about hot coffee, clean socks, and finishing the crossword by 10 a.m. But when his wife passed away and the house got too quiet, he started noticing things. Like how the kitchen felt colder even when the heater was running. Or how, no matter how many times he scrubbed the sink, the space never felt clean. Every morning, Frank would wash the dishes standing at the same old sink back turned to the door, head down, shoulders tight. The window above the sink looked out into the neighbor's fence. Nothing moved. No light, no trees, just beige wood and shadows. He used to hum while washing. Now he didn't. Feng Shui says that where you face while doing something matters. Direction guides energy. It shapes how things move through space and time. When you wash dishes facing a dead wall or a blocked view, you unknowingly send your energy into a dead zone. And if your back is to the entry door while handling water, which represents flow and wealth, you create what's called a reverse wealth leak. Water is life, flow is fortune. But when your posture is guarded and your direction is closed, that flow gets confused. Instead of cycling through your space energy pools, then leaks out through the cracks you don't even see. Frank wasn't losing money. He was losing circulation of joy, of memory, of lucky energy. And the longer he washed with his back turned, the more the house echoed with silence. Frank had been careful his whole life. He worked the same route for 28 years. Same shoes, same lunches, same knock on Mrs. Kowalski's door. He believed in schedules, in doing the right thing, in not asking for too much. But after retirement, and after losing his partner of 40 years, that carefulness hardened into a shell. He didn't want change. He just wanted to keep the world from slipping further away. People like Frank often resist realignment. Not because they're stubborn, but because facing a new direction means admitting the old one no longer serves. Washing dishes with your back to the door is like driving with your eyes closed, just because the car always went that way before. Or like singing into a pillow and expecting applause. The kitchen is a stage of movement. And Frank had become a ghost in his own play, repeating lines, missing the spotlight, forgetting the applause was still possible. One afternoon, Frank visited his daughter in Trenton. Her kitchen was tiny but bright. Sink by the side wall, open view of the room, a little window looking out toward a tree with a swing. He offered to wash the dishes. She said yes. And as he stood there facing inward, not out noticed something. He felt seen, even alone. He felt part of the room, not hidden from it. That night, he Googled Feng Shui sink direction on his flip phone. It took 20 minutes. But he found a sentence that stuck. Don't clean your space while facing away from the future. Frank didn't renovate. He just moved a plant. Turned his dish rack sideways. Slid the small rolling island 2 feet to the left. Now when he washes, he can see the door. He keeps a little light on in the corner. And he hums again. Not for anyone else. Just for the chi. Now, every Tuesday morning, Frank makes pancakes. Just for himself. He cleans the pan while whistling and tells his cat, "Gotta keep the wealth flow happy." Sometimes he still misses the silence. But now the silence feels warm, like a held breath, like something about to arrive. Lisa didn't even notice the towel anymore. It was just there. A faded yellow cloth folded by the sink with a fraying edge and a faint outline of old spaghetti sauce. Every day after school, she'd come home, pour herself some tea, and dry the dishes with it. Same towel, same rhythm, same sigh. One afternoon, her daughter pointed to it and said, "Mom, that towel's older than me." Lisa laughed. But later that night, she kept thinking about that comment. The towel had been around since her first apartment, since student debt, since a broken engagement, since the storm of her 20s. And somehow, she was still drying her present with a fabric soaked in her past. Feng Shui teaches that the energy you use to finish a task is just as important as how you start it. When you dry your dishes, the final step of cleansing with a towel that's worn out, stained, or stiff, you're sealing in tired chi. Instead of releasing energy, you trap it. Instead of blessing the flow, you block the final note. That towel, sitting in her kitchen, had absorbed more than just water. It held fatigue, memories, things she thought she moved on from. But chi remembers what you don't always speak out loud. Lisa was a caretaker. Not just for her students, but for everyone around her. She gave her time, gave her energy, gave her best. Except to herself. She was the type to keep using the same old towel because it still worked. Because replacing it felt wasteful. Because it was familiar. But that's the trap. When we get used to small frictions, we start calling them normal. And in Feng Shui, normalized depletion is one of the sneakiest money blocks there is. Drying dishes with a ragged towel is like wrapping a gift with torn newspaper. It sends a message that says, "This was an afterthought." It's like finishing a workout and putting on sweaty socks. Or ending a conversation with, "Whatever, I guess." The energy doesn't land. it loops. And when energy loops without release, luck doesn't know where to enter. One Saturday, Lisa went to a home goods store. Not for anything fancy, just looking for candles. She wandered into the kitchen aisle and, on impulse, picked up a pack of 3 white dish towels. Thick, soft, plain. The cashier complimented her choice. Said, "Fresh towels change everything. My grandma always said, never dry a clean plate with a dirty past." Lisa smiled and felt that line stay with her the whole drive home. That night, she cleared the counter, lit a candle, put on jazz, and dried every dish with the new towel. It felt silly, but also sacred. She folded the old towel one last time and quietly placed it in a donation bag. Not because it was trash, but because it had finished its role. Now she rotates towels like seasons. White in winter, sage green in spring. She even embroidered a tiny heart on one corner. And every time she dries a dish, she smiles. Not because it's clean, but because it's been honored. By the way, if this is speaking to you so far, feel free to subscribe. We share 2 new videos every day, all about the quiet ways Feng Shui shapes your energy, your home, and your luck. Drop a comment too. I'd love to know if you've ever kept something longer than you should have, just because it felt familiar. Marcia always moved fast. 12-hour shifts at the hospital. Lunch eaten standing up. 3 kids. 1 husband. No time. So, when it came to washing dishes, she did it like triage. All at once. No breaks. Plates, pots, knives, glasses scrubbed, stacked, rinsed, dried, in one uninterrupted motion. It looked efficient, felt productive, but afterward, she always felt tired in a way she couldn't explain. Like the kitchen had swallowed something, like the air had thickened. In Feng Shui, the kitchen is a power grid. It holds water, flow, fire, transformation, earth stability, and metal clarity. But when you run all these elements at once without rhythm, without pause, you create a surge. And what surges must eventually crash. Washing everything non-stop doesn't just wear your hands. It floods your energy, overwhelms your chi. Marcia didn't know she was sending mixed signals to her space. Speed means safety. Hustle means worth. Stillness is lazy. Her kitchen listened and started reflecting that message back through small chaos. A broken plate. A jammed garbage disposal. A fridge light that wouldn't stay on. Marcia was a healer for others, but she didn't know how to extend that healing inward. She came from a long line of women who did everything without asking for help. Her grandmother boiled clothes on a wood stove. Her mother worked 2 jobs and never missed church. So Marcia believed slowing down was luxury. And luxury was guilt. The kind of person who makes this mistake doesn't want to rush. They've just been taught that moving fast keeps the chaos from catching up. Washing every dish at once is like binge-watching therapy sessions and thinking that counts as healing. It's like dumping all your laundry into one load, then wondering why nothing smells right. There's no pacing, no honoring, just volume. And Feng Shui doesn't respond to how much you do. It responds to how present you are when you do it. One day, Marcia ran into her old neighbor at the pharmacy. They caught up, laughed, talked about kids. And as they were walking out, the neighbor said something offhand. "You still wash dishes like you're running late to a fire?" Marcia blinked. "I do, every night." The neighbor chuckled. You should try breathing between plates. Like, literally pause. Let the energy settle. It's weirdly calming." She waved and drove off. But that sentence lodged in Marcia's chest like a pin. That night, Marcia stacked her dishes in 2 piles. She washed 1 plate, stopped, took a sip of water, looked out the window, then washed another. And something shifted. Not just in her body, in the air. Her hands didn't hurt. Her breath didn't hitch. The kitchen exhaled. Now, Marcia lights a small tea candle before she washes. It's not for mood, it's for pacing. She calls it her pause light. If the flame flickers too wildly, she knows she's rushing. If it stays steady, she's present. And her kids know. When the pause light's on, Mom's in her rhythm. Not racing. Just flowing. Daryl was proud of his sink. Not the fancy kind of pride. Just the quiet kind that comes from knowing something's done right. After every meal, he washed his dishes. He wiped down the counter. He even polished the faucet with a microfiber cloth. No dishes left. No crumbs. No mess. But something about that corner still felt stuck. Even with an empty sink, the space didn't breathe. The light didn't move right. He couldn't explain it, but the whole kitchen felt like it was waiting for something. And he realized maybe he cleared the dishes, but forgot to clear the weight. Feng Shui teaches that emptiness without release is not healing. It's just hollow. You can scrub and scrub, but if the energy around the space still carries guilt, frustration, or loneliness, the room stays emotionally cluttered. The qi doesn't just react to objects. It listens to residue, the kind you don't see with your eyes. Daryl's sink was spotless. But his thoughts? They echoed every argument he had while holding a sponge. Every unpaid bill he thought about while rinsing a plate. Every self-doubt he swallowed while wiping down the edge of the counter. That space had become a memory vault, not a flow zone. Daryl used to be a chef. Long hours, high heat, screaming bosses. He burned out at 38 and switched to rideshare driving for peace. But even with the job shift, the stress never fully left. He'd pull into his apartment after a long day, open the fridge, microwave a burrito, and clean up like a machine. No music, no talking, no presence. He didn't realize that his sink had become a ritual of recovery. Except he never let the emotion recover. This mistake is common in people who crave control. They think, if it looks clean, it's handled. But Feng Shui reminds us, energy doesn't care how it looks. It cares how it feels. An emotionally cluttered sink is like a perfectly made bed in a room filled with secrets. It looks fine, but sleep doesn't come easy. It's like wearing a crisp white shirt while your chest still aches. You trick the mirror, but not the energy. One night, Daryl picked up a passenger who worked as a florist. They got to talking. She told him she used to cry while washing dishes every night for months. "But then I started talking to the sink," she said. "Like actually thanking it, not because I believed in spirits or whatever, just because I needed somewhere to put my feelings." Daryl laughed, but the idea sat with him. Not weird, just possible. That weekend, he tried it. He finished his dishes like always, then stood in front of the sink, placed both hands on the counter, took a deep breath, and said out loud, "Thank you for handling my mess. I'm letting go of today now. No music, no audience, Just the soft hum of the fridge and the light over the stove. For the first time in years, he felt the kitchen shift, like it wasn't holding its breath anymore. Now, Daryl keeps a tiny post-it inside his cabinet. It reads, "Clear the space, not just the sink." He still wipes everything down. Still folds the towel just so. But now he adds one more thing. A pause. A breath. A thank you. And somehow, his tips got better that week. His car ran smoother. Even the barista at his favorite drive-thru said, "You look lighter today." Sometimes, it's not the pile of dirty dishes that blocks our luck. It's the rhythm behind them. The towel we keep using. The silence we never clear. The way we rush, or avoid, or forget that energy isn't just about what's seen. It's about what's felt. Maybe your sink is already clean, but your energy still feels tangled. Maybe you've been trying to fix things on the outside, while the chi is quietly waiting for you to breathe. And if any of this sounds like you, you're not alone. Let's wrap up with a few closing thoughts that might help your space and your spirit flow a little easier. No matter how big or small your home is, the kitchen always speaks. It's where money flows, luck lingers, and energy either resets or repeats. And the sink? It's not just where you clean your plates. It's where you clean your patterns. Today wasn't about perfection. It was about noticing. The way you stand, the direction you face, the towel you use, the emotion you rinse but never release. And sometimes, just one small shift, a new towel, a slower rhythm, a whispered thank you can open a door you didn't know was shut. If today's video gave you something to think about, feel free to like, comment, or share it with someone who might need this kind of quiet reminder. We also share 2 new videos every day, all about the subtle, surprising ways Feng Shui shapes your space and your story. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There's more to explore, and we'd love to have you with us. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out this next one. Why Energy Won't Stay: 5 Entryway Feng Shui Mistakes That Block Your Flow. It dives deep into the front door, the first point of energy in your home, and how a few silent traps might be pushing your luck away the moment you walk in. Your space speaks. Wisdom listens.